The NBA doesn't care about their head coaches. My name's Hawk. Let's talk hoops. On May 4th, it was announced that the Milwaukee Bucks have fired their now former head coach, Mike Budenholzer. Budenholzer is the only fourth coach in the last 50 years to lead their team to a top record in the NBA and be fired that same summer. This firing has been extremely controversial over the last couple of days. Dame had this to say: folks out here firing championship coaches as soon as they don't win the chip. Steve Kerr had this to say:
Mike Budenholzer was fired today. You've talked about when other coaches. Is it beginning to get a little stunning, just guys who won the championship, guys who have succeeded a lot getting, and obviously had a very good record this season, getting fired this quickly? There seems to be a speed up of this. Does this disturb you at all?
It does. On the one hand, we all know what we're getting into when we get into this business. So my first response is not necessarily shock. It's more disappointment, because Bud is a fantastic coach and, as you said, just won a championship and has been wildly successful in his coaching career. But this is the business we're in. Raymond just told me 3 of the last 4 championship coaches have been fired, and
which is crazy. 3 of the last 4 championship coaches have been fired. Absolutely insane. We'll get to that in a second.
It's just, it happens quickly. I mean, there's expectations every year for every team are so high, and only one team can win. And so it's sad news for the coaching profession. I think we all believe Bud deserved a lot better, but we also, as I said, are aware that this is a job we chose, and we're all vulnerable.
You heard Steve Kerr mention it. 3 of the past 4 NBA championship head coaches have been fired. The Bucks fired Mike Budenholzer. The Lakers fired Frank Vogel. Remember, they won back in 2020 in the bubble. And the Raptors fired Nick Nurse, and they won in 2019 with Kawhi. Also, speaking of the Raptors, right before Nick Nurse got there, the Raptors fired Dwayne Casey right after he won Coach of the Year. The reason I say the NBA doesn't care about their head coaches is because it feels like a team's first step towards trying to change something. Say they feel like they have their superstars, they feel like they have the roster, and the roster doesn't compete to whatever level that team's goals and expectations were. It always feels like the first step or the first option is to fire the coach almost immediately. And I get it to an extent. It's a player-led league. Fans are purchasing tickets and purchasing merchandise to watch their favorite players, to go see their favorite players. Yes, we admire the coaches and we respect what the coaches do and their job, but no one's really going to a game to see the coaches. They're going to see the players. Hence why, if there's a problem, you try to keep your players that the people are paying to see, and you try to get a new coach there. But in Mike Budenholzer's case, it's crazy to think this guy literally just won them a championship. They had the best record in the league. And while, yes, we went into detail in a couple of videos ago with some of the coaching mishaps and those last game 4 and game 5 of that Bucks game where he missed taking some crucial timeouts. But in the same breath, we find out later from Darvin Ham that Budenholzer's brother died during this series. Like, his brother was in a fatal car crash and he stayed and continued to coaching. That's just a lot to be going through emotionally, internally, while still trying to be a professional. Much respect to him for doing that, but I know that wasn't easy. And now you're fired? It's crazy when you think about it in the grand scheme of things. But like I said, it's a player-driven league. So almost immediately after the firing of Coach Budenholzer, ESPN and Brian Windhorst have this to say about Giannis and his uncertainty in the NBA, or at least with the Bucks right now.
Is Giannis going to extend? I don't know. And that uncertainty is what the league is watching right now. The New York Knicks, for example, they got 97% of their attention on the Miami Heat, 3% of their attention on Milwaukee. What's going on over there?
So now the idea and the conversation is shifting to, okay, what does the Bucks have to do to keep Giannis there? Because when you look at his contract, he's under contract next year, finishing out the 24-25 season, but then he has a player option for the 25-26 season, and after that, he's unrestricted free agent. So essentially, after next year, if he doesn't like the way this is going, if it doesn't look like he's going to sign an extension, the Bucks are put in a position where they have to make a decision. Do you even entertain the idea of trading Giannis? That way you get something for him and he doesn't walk away. And it's seeming to be, once again, the onus to take the responsibility was fell on the coach. He got fired. And now it's falling on the organization to build a competent roster and to make the right decisions to satisfy Giannis and convince him to stay there, right? But call me crazy, I feel like no one's holding Giannis accountable for any of this. We all saw Giannis's press conference go viral after the loss to the Miami Heat when he was talking about there's no failure in sports, there's only steps to success. That some people loved that, some people hated it. It got a lot of mixed reactions, but one piece of this press conference that I don't think did get a lot of attention, at least to me, was this.
Hey, Giannis, would you have, when you were available to play and be out there, would you have liked to have defended Jimmy Moore one-on-one?
Question is, if you didn't hear, the reporter asked him, would you have liked to defend Jimmy Moore one-on-one?
Yes.
I realize it's Drew. How do you go about that? Like, is that something that you just let Bud decide that, or could you have called for a number? You know what I mean? Within the structure of the defense, could you have called for yourself to defend him?
No, out of respect, you gotta let the coach, make that adjustment, and we have our best defender on him. But obviously, this conversation with Drew, whenever he gets tired, I can take him. But he's so competitive, plays so hard, and he wanted to take the challenge. But at the end of the day, I wish I could guard him more, for sure.
One of the things that stuck out to me in this, right? He says, you got to respect the coach's decision. You have to let the coach decide what the defensive schemes are, right? But he says it in such a respectful way that if a different player said it, if a different person said it, they might have said it differently. And they might have just said, yeah, coach said, no, I can't guard him. And they might say it with a little, not disdain, but a little frustration in their voice. Giannis has a great ability of being very respectful all the time, which I don't know a knock to Giannis. I think he probably is a great individual, great human being, and he probably is that respectful in real life. It could be a facade. I don't truly know. But I feel like that moment was brushed over by a lot of people because I took it as it was coach's idea. This is on coach. This was coach's idea. And part of me feels like if this was any other player, especially with how Giannis performed in game 4 and game 5, Giannis was in that game 5 was 10 for 23 at the free throw line and infamously ended missing a ton in that second half of that game. It's weird because it's Giannis. Like I said, everyone loves him. But I feel like if this was Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Joel Embiid, there would be a bigger conversation of this guy isn't taking it seriously. This guy can't get it done. This guy failed his team. I personally, at least, and if it's out there, point me in the right direction. I'd love to read an article, watch videos about it. No one's saying Giannis failed this team. No one's saying Giannis failed this series. Yes, was he injured? Was he battling an injury? Sure, yeah. But all three of those other guys I just named have been in situations where they were battling injury or their team wasn't at 100%. And they got slandered when they failed in the playoffs. We don't have that same for Giannis. And you could say it's not apples to apples. Giannis has an MVP. Giannis has a recent chip. Embiid doesn't have a chip, but Kevin Durant has chips and MVP. The idea of firing a coach is always a very interesting conversation to me because when a coach gets fired, almost always it's made to seem like everything that went wrong with this team was that coach's fault. But it simply cannot be. Did Mike Budenholzer make some mistakes in that Miami series? Sure. Is he the perfect coach? Definitely not. But is he also a great coach that helped this team win a championship just 2 years ago? Absolutely. He instilled a new culture and style of play that maximized some of Giannis's potential and led him to get MVPs in the championship. Think about that. And he's fired now. That coach led a team that had Chris Middleton in and out of the lineup for the majority of the season to the best record in the NBA. That same coach is now fired. Now, will he get another job? Absolutely. Will the Bucks probably hire another good coach? Sure. I hear Nick Nurse is one of the coaches that are, earmarked for that position potentially because he's a coach who likes to micromanage and make a lot more adjustments on the fly, where Budenholzer is like, this is the system, play within the system, and we will win coach. And if Giannis in that interview was saying he wants to respect the coach and let the coach make those decisions, maybe he needs a coach that's going to micromanage more. So maybe Nick Nurse is the guy for the job. But let me know what you think. Am I overreacting? Was it time for Budenholzer to be fired? Should Giannis be held accountable for some of this? But that's all I got for now. Thanks so much for watching. Give it a like if you're a real one, and I'll see you in the next one. I'm out. Peace.